Okay. Mute everybody. And then Karrie, you can unmute yourself, Karrie, when you're ready to talk. And I'm going to start the screen share so that when people as people log on, I'm going to go ahead and start this screen share, which will be the keynote. There we go. So if we're lucky, we're looking at a copy of the webpage, so everybody can see. Mm-hmm. Okay. We've got a good number. Yeah, we've got all kinds of folks. Okay, people are starting to come in. So we can go ahead and start. It's 5 after noon. And since I'm recording, if anybody comes in and misses this, we're going to post it on the website. And I hope that people saw the previous talk that we did. Our first Friday talk was also recorded, and it is on the front page of the website too. This is just a snapshot of the webpage, or else I would scroll down and show you where it is. But this is what the website looks like, and you can see we're sidestreetarts.com. So I'm Michelle Sabatier, and I'm a member at Side Street Arts. We are a collective, an art collective in Southeast Portland, and we show our own work, of course, and we also show work of invited artists, and we represent about, I think we're over 30 artists now that we represent, and mainly local, Northwest. We've got a few people on the coast, or, you know, from Corvallis, or, you know, but it's, we're fairly local artists that we like to show. So both emerging and established artists. And we've got 2 really nice established artists who are here today, and this is our August feature show, running from August 5th through 30th, as you can see. We did do a First Friday opening. Southeast Portland does First Friday walks, and well, I don't know if we do the walks anymore, but we have our First Friday openings, and we did record that, where Karrie and Rebecca both talked about some of the inspirations of their pieces they did for this show, and we ran through seeing every item of the show, and they talked about each piece. If you want to see that, again, the link to that talk is on the front page of the website. And there's also, again, oh, I guess I can maybe use a mouse here. Can I? No. Yeah? No. There's the feature gallery shop. You'll see right up there underneath the date of the show. And you can go there and see every single one of the pieces. They are there for sale as well as for viewing, and they're also in the gallery, of course, which we're open Thursdays through Sundays from 12 to 5. You can even go by today after the talk, or if you run really fast, you can get there now. Denise is there you can see the art and listen to the talk. So today they're both going to talk a little bit more about process, and both of them are very interesting processes. And as I was making the slides and stuff last night, the thing that really showed for me was that both of them are using these ancient techniques. You know, I looked up a little information about Karrie's, and Rebecca's, you know, looking at your photos from ceramics, obviously very ancient too, but both of their techniques date way, way back, and yet they're both very contemporary looking pieces. One of the things from the Friday talk was that Karrie's have these look of outer space, and or Karrie's, I'm sorry, they have these connections and groundedness, but you can't always tell where they are in space. And then Rebecca's ceramics look a lot like nebula and outer space, and so I love that combination. But I'm going to let them talk. So we're going to start with Karrie talking about her pieces. So that's where she starts, where every artist starts.
Well, I think that as we go through these, I'll just explain the process that I go through. And Michelle talked a little bit about the history of reverse painting on glass. And I learned about it in History of Art, and I've read a lot about it. but quite frankly, some of the the ancient pieces aren't very interesting to me. It's about as interesting as Egyptian artifacts are. So what I have done, and it was quite accidental, I painted a piece on an old window in about 1985 for an art show. And lo and behold, people were fascinated. How did you do that? Blah, blah, blah. Well, I'll run through a few basic things. You won't see me do it in person because of what's going on right now. But some of my tools, my favorite tool is a razor blade. Rubbing alcohol is another thing I use. We can go to the next slide. I use acrylic paint, including house paint. There are a few people that do reverse painting on glass, and that is painting on the back side, and what you see is on the front of the glass. So some people use oil paints, and for me, that's too inhibiting. I like to have something dry fast, and the cheaper the acrylic seems to work the best. Although some of the tubes and things that I use aren't inexpensive, but I use, always have a spray bottle of water and Windex. Next slide. Oh, lots of brushes.
Yeah.
One of the things I do is, you can barely see the outline of the glass against the white paper. That I work flat, usually work flat on my table. And I clean the glass really well, both sides. And I decide what the reverse side is. And if I'm doing a landscape, I want to find the horizon. So I use a black Sharpie and I do a basic sketch of where I think I want to go. And then I turn the glass over, and that image that you see there is now going to be painted in reverse on the back. That's fine. Just showing you the paints. Sometimes I mix them like this, just haphazardly. Sometimes I mix them on the glass itself. Remember, these are acrylics. A lot of times I use them like watercolor. I really thin them down. We can go to the next one. So I've reversed the glass and now I am painting, and the idea is, now, if you can imagine, if we could see each other in person, you would really get this. But so what I drew is on the other side of the glass, and now I'm thinking, where am I going with this? And so the highlights always go on first. Well, not always, but mostly. And so this is an idea. I'm going to do some snow-covered peaks, and we can go to the next one. It's glass, people, so you're seeing through this glass and you can see my lines, but you can see where I'm going now. I'm layering, and remember, those black lines are on the other side of the glass, and there comes a point where they're obliterated, and I really have to remember to take Windex when I'm finished and wipe all that black and clean the glass really well on the front side.
So Karrie, let me ask a
yes.
Here. So the Sharpie that we see is actually on the side that's going to be the finished side that we see,
yes,
later, right? Because you're going to clean the Sharpie off.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I would think so. I'm already. I'm already.
It's confusing, but
yeah.
I've done marble sculpture, and for me, it's the same kind of thinking. It's where it's thinking backwards.
It is.
Because, if you think about chipping away at something, like rock, you're having to think in reverse. You can't go, what are you going to do? Where are you going with this? But you have to think back to where you are on that surface. Now,
that's a fascinating comparison.
yeah,
it's really interesting that it's not another 2D comparison. It is absolutely thinking backwards, a lot like printmakers too. But anyone who's done watercolor is absolutely upside down right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to recommend to people, if you even attempt to try this, number one, it's not easy. Like all of these things, they look easy, but they're not. The other thing is, you have to keep basic artistic principles in mind. If you're doing a landscape, you don't want to cut that. I'm painting this horizontally. A lot of my landscapes are not vertically painted, but horizontally painted. Now I'm moving my arms as if you can see me, but you can't. So you really want to think about composition, and there are a lot of factors that go into this, just like any other medium. So we can go to the next thing. So now this is still the back side. And I want to remind people that there are layers and layers and layers and layers of paint. And I haven't even begun to really turn it around and look to see what I've done and what I next want to do to it, including scratching through areas, adding more color. I have to block out anything that I want to remain light. For example, the sky, I'll need to paint several layers of white over that and seal it very well so that and we can look at the next slide. Oh, here's a technique. If you use a fan brush, I don't know, Michelle, if you can go back to the other slide or not, but you can see very faintly there under some of the layers are grasses. This is an Eastern Washington or Eastern Oregon scene that I'm going for.
So just below these mountains that are on our right? Is
yes, and along that, whatever that white thing is, or whatever it's going to be. I've used a fan brush to fan in some grasses here and there, and I'll let everything, various stages of those dry, and then seal them so that they don't all disappear. And then I begin to scratch through them and add more color. I mean, this is just a base, and then there are many more layers that go on, and sometimes they all get, they don't look comfortable to me, so I then begin to wipe them out and do other things. So
someone has asked, and you might be planning to say this later, what do you seal them with? I mean, and do not feel like you need to give away anything.
Oh, no. I use clear acrylic sealer over some areas, and some areas, if I want to stay real light, before I seal it with clear acrylic, this is on the back over the paint, I'll paint just layers and layers and layers of a light color to maintain its color integrity. And then because there's a slide that you'll see where I finish the whole back of the piece.
Here we go.
There in black. And notice that I'm not painting the sky black yet. I'm painting everything else black because I want a real contemporary look for my eyes. I want black to accidentally bleed through in a lot of areas. And remember, this is acrylic paint. it is plastic, but there are times during the painting and drying process where it still is quite fluid and moves around a lot. And sometimes I want that, so I'll spray it with more water or lay, excuse me, in areas rubbing alcohol. I'll show you an example of that on one of the pieces that's in the
Here's
show.
our last, yeah, here we go to your contemporary pieces. So it all sounds so easy there, but in the landscape, it was a nice example because we could really see that happening. And these are just, you have to see them in the gallery.
Well,
do it justice. They
so
really glow. There's just something about them glowing behind the glass. That gives it a look that a regular painting doesn't have. It almost looks like it does on a computer monitor. You know how when you see something on a monitor, it's got that sharp, only, better than any monitor, right? Because it's real life. But it has that glowing quality. And on some of these, you can see the depth of the glass. When you look at them, you can actually see through the glass. So if you want to go through these.
Yes, I'll go through them. And you tell me when I'm running out of time.
You're good.
You'll see this is nothing like a landscape, and it started out, I just splashed color all over the back of the glass with no intention whatsoever. And then when I looked at it, I thought, I'm going to cut areas away with a razor blade and see what happens. And so I began to create open space. And then with the black being applied, little cracks formed and made some pretty interesting mark making. And so this became garden. It took a long, long time to do this piece. I almost washed it off at several points. But I know from many years of experience doing this that I really have to wait and see what happens. Just like all of the artists out there, you really want to wait and take another look at it, maybe the next day or next week.
Or next year.
Or next year.
Yeah, that happens too.
Okay, next one. This is one, it's in the show, and this one is a good example of a landscape, very contemporary, and the use of rubbing alcohol in certain places to create a fluid, almost ice look. It doesn't always work. It's in control of itself. And so I have to wait and see what happens. So that's my contemporary idea of a landscape with, you can tell now that the black is coming through in certain places. And for me, the effect was what I was hoping for.
Nice.
And then, this is another idea of a landscape. It looks, I think it's called slippery when wet. Not only black, I not only let black come through, but sometimes I use sticks from my garden to punch holes in some of the paint while it's pretty wet and turn it on edge and see what happens. In the next slide. This is what you'd call a finished landscape. Going back to the beginning, it's very similar to what I was showing you, the process of how to do a landscape. One of the things, I've done hundreds of these old windows. The glass is fascinating because old window glass is, it's like the glass settles. It's thicker at the bottom than at the top. And so you get interesting effects. And this one was up in Yakima for a while at the steakhouse up there. But one of the things about this is, and I've seen people use old windows, they're very hard to find anymore, but I did remove all the lead paint as much as I could and seal it before I went ahead and painted it. Any questions at all?
This is the one you were talking about that was your first
Yes,
one that
yes.
you did. It's just beautiful.
Yes. And you can tell, you know, I really worked through a lot of changes before I quit.
Yeah, let's see. So here's some of the, so these are some that are not in the show, but are these early pieces, these next?
No, well, these I've just done in the last couple of years. I did a whole series of, I was experimenting by painting the entire piece of glass white and then adding some other colors. Remember I said I want to hold light colors with a clear acrylic, but in this case, I layered some other colors over the white to have them kind of shine through. And then when it was dry, I took a razor blade and just sketched as though I was sketching in a sketchbook, a whole series of these gatekeepers or shamans, or this one I called Standing Rock. And so I think I only have a couple of these left. This one is not, this one's been sold, but I thought it was an interesting process. I think I'll do more of those.
You know what I just noticed in here is that same gesture, that mark you make that is in your other, the
Yes.
pieces that are in the show, many of them are inspired by your family and time in Alaska, and that you talk about the grounding where there's either things that look like a ladder or a line or a
Yes.
string or something. I'm thinking especially of the Saving the Crew one.
Yes.
Where you've got the object, it looks like he's holding an object in his hand, but that's straight out of those other paintings. It's like that's your little talisman in there.
Yes.
It's like,
yeah, it's been with me for years, so.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny, do you do it on purpose, or is it just something that always comes out for you? Did you discover that you were doing it?
I don't think very much about it, but as I'm working, if you could see me work on something like this, I'm working real fast and it just comes out.
Yeah.
And
it's your mastery of the process that allows you to work fast like that. I was thinking, you know, the intuitive painting is so popular now, where you just do the mark making and fill in things and then find it later. And that's a challenge in itself, but then to be doing it upside backwards, you know, and to you know, keep checking the front and see that and knowing ahead of time what you need to do that. So your mastery of the technique is what makes this these very organic pieces. You know, I think anyone can plan, just like anyone can play notes, right? Like you can even teach me to play piano if I knew that. I did a bell ringing thing one time, but you know, to be able to do it intuitively and organically is amazing. In this, any of us who are painters who are watching this know, just, you know, to have that kind of control over it is just beautiful. And that's the part where my dear friend and awesome teacher, Linda Robertson, you know, when she gives away her secrets, always says, yeah, go ahead, do that.
Yeah, go ahead and try it.
I have been wondering since I first came into the gallery, the first time I ever walked in there, how you got those fine black lines when it was upside down and they're so, you know, and you told us, now you showed us, but yeah. I still
I know. Try it.
Yeah, try it. Go ahead. I'll hand you a torch and some wax. We'll see. We'll see the lens.
No, thanks.
It is just beautiful. And then I think this last piece that you have up here is one that I kind of remember.
Yeah, this just shows a different technique. If you're, you know, doing a still life, this was more complicated than it looks.
Mhm.
Because my intention was to do a contemporary look at Hermiston watermelons, you know, triangles. Um, and, you know, again, thinking about the basics in drawing and painting, you know, you want to think about not cutting the piece in half, you know, what's the composition, and then how do you hold those seeds where you want them, how do you highlight them, um, you know, what color combination. And we won't get into color theory today, but I have above where I paint, I have color wheels, and I'm always looking at them because, you know, I want sometimes more shock value, and
Mhm.
notice that there's blue highlights against, you know, this thing and that thing. Anyway,
And the
so
color combinations are the pieces that you chose to show from the show at the gallery, which is only, it's a very small portion of what's there. But all of those, you can see that I tend to gravitate toward the ones that have that contrast, like that
yeah,
periwinkle blue, you know, with the orange. But then you also have some that are very calming and not monotone, but, you know, gradients of color. And that's what catches my eye, I think.
well, you know, those are intentional because I think there's so, glass makes the color saturated and intense. And especially with the colors I use, pink and, you know, just shocking, pink and orange together. But I needed your eye someplace to rest, and
Mhm.
mine too. And
Yeah.
so that was important to me.
If there, well, there just, I think there is, yeah, there is one more.
Now this one is an example of the color isn't very
We're
good on
calming.
that.
This is definitely the calming
It is.
colors.
This one is called Famous Blue Tree. And this is just an idea of scratching through, and then you can see the sky. I held that, I fixed it so that I wouldn't have any black coming through, even though at the very end, everything is black on the back, and then everything is sealed with clear acrylic sealer. And I've even had I had a woman buy some of these on old windows for her horse. What do you call it? Where they train their horses. So they're hanging basically kind of outside, but out of the weather.
Mhm.
And, you know, so they're sealed very well, all of them, whether they're outside or inside. I wouldn't recommend hanging them in the rain, but.
And the acrylic is, they can be in sunlight, right?
Yes.
A lot of
Oh,
other paintings, these would be beautiful in sunlight.
yes.
And are you using the like museum archival glass or just regular glass?
I'm using regular glass, and then I'm also using 1/4-inch thick glass, which uh, gives a whole different
Yeah.
feeling to the piece. And when I frame them, I usually lay them against a thin stretched canvas so that they're very stable, and then that's all in framed. And
Okay, so they're not as fragile as just having a piece of just glass in there. They've got
yeah, yes. No matter if there's a canvas behind it or not, there are layers of things that
things. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think, yeah, that's the end for yours. And I think the comment that you made that is a really great segue into Rebecca's is when you said you like to sometimes accidentally, and that's those, you know, the happy accidents, right? That every artist, when the gods are with you, the gods are with you when your accidents work well. But having those, like the cracks and lines in there, you said that you'd like to accidentally have the paint intrude sometime. And I think that Rebecca's ceramics also is controlling those accidents a lot. And she hinted at some of that when she gave her talk on on the first Friday. So Karrie, thank you. Anybody have questions for Karrie? We're right about at our half hour. I've got a couple of chat questions open. Let's see. Oh, okay. So yeah, somebody did ask if the talisman was a series or a theme, and so that's that line that we talked about. And you know, when did they develop? Did they come about without you even realizing it? Because they're very strong in your current pieces.
They just came about. I had an idea that I wanted to try that, and I just kept going with it. I had probably 8 or 9 of them, and I think I have 2 left. It was just, I'm experimenting with this. I also paint on canvas, but
you do, and some of your canvas paintings are in the show too. I don't want to give
yes.
those short shrift. Go ahead and finish, but I do want people to make sure to get in and see your canvas pieces as well.
Well, to finish, I think one of the questions might be, can you use plexiglass? And the answer is no. It doesn't move. It doesn't do anything like glass. So I would say absolutely not.
It has to be the real glass.
It has to be glass.
Yeah, plexiglass isn't really as
No.
clear, I guess. Yeah, that is a really good question, and I'm sure you get it a lot.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, because it would be much cheaper. But yeah.
And galleries don't accept glass. I mean, usually.
They don't want the plexi, yeah.
They don't want the, you know.
Yeah. So, well, thank you. And if questions come up later, certainly throw them in the chat if something, if you think of something later. But I want to stay with this theme of our, accidental happenings on things. So I'm going to, we'll introduce Rebecca Arthur, who is a ceramic artist, and you're in Corvallis, right?
Corvallis.
Corvallis. Okay, I don't pronounce it right. Sorry. At least I have to say Willamette. That one I have to remember. So let's see. Yeah, there we go. That's how Rebecca wants to introduce herself. So take it away, and I'm going to follow along, and I'll hope that I change these at the right spot.
Okay, so I'm Rebecca Arthur, and to talk about my process of pit firing. And I specialize in what are called low fire techniques in ceramics, such as pit firing, Western raku, and horsehair. And you may have heard ceramics artists talk about high fire, mid-range, and low fire ceramics. High fire, briefly, high fire and mid-range ceramics are fired at a high enough temperature that the clay is vitrified. It's really hardened, and the glazes are glass-like, and the ware can be watertight and food safe and put through the dishwasher. And high fire ceramics usually are fired to about 2,300, 2,400 degrees. And my work is not. So I do low fire. My work is decorative. It's not watertight because I fire to a temperature, a low enough temperature where the clay body is hardened, but it's more open and porous and able to receive the smoke and the flames and the fumes of the firing. So in my work, the vessels or the discs, you see a disc here, are my canvases, and I'm painting with fire and smoke. And the results are random. I do have some control, not a lot, and I just have learned to delight in the random, unpredictable, and surreal results. So 4 of the vessels in this show and this large disc are fired using the pit firing technique.
And how big is this disc, Rebecca? It's like 14, it's big.
14 inches in diameter.
Yeah, it's big. It's not like a little thing you set on your desk. It's
No.
large and imposing. Yeah, it's right smack in the middle of our window if you walk by, and it's really eye-catching.
So pit firing, you talked about how both of our techniques are ancient techniques. Pit firing is an ancient technique. It was the next innovation after prehistoric bonfire firing. And that's when it was discovered that the hardened clay was reusable, and it was hard enough that it could hold liquids. And so people wanted to exaggerate that, and so they started enclosing the bonfires. And the difference between pit firing and bonfire firing and more modern types of kilns is that in pit firing, there's no separation between the wear and the fuel. And so you can see the pieces in this pit. The fire is actually right on top of the pieces. Some pit fires are actual holes in the ground, like this one, or a hole in the sand at the beach to contain the fire, and some are above ground. They might be surrounded by rocks or metal. Mine is metal, and in all of them, the ware is put into the pit, and then the fire is built directly on top of the ware. And then once the fire starts to burn down, it's covered with a lid or dirt or more rocks, and that retains the heat. And so with a limited amount of oxygen in there and the heat, the ware is able to soak up the smoke and the fumes from the salts or minerals and the combustion materials, and it just soaks in there and gains the color. Next. So before firing, I prepare the vessels. I throw them on the potter's wheel, or like some of them are hand built, like the large discs. But I throw them, then I dry them completely to a stage called bone dry. And when they are bone dry, I apply 2 or 3 coats of terra sigillata on them. And terra sigillata is a really thin slip. It's very fine particles of clay suspended in water, about the consistency of milk. And so when you coat the vessels with terra sigillata, it soaks into the surface, and the fine particles go into any cracks and crevices that are in the surface. And I let that dry, and then I go back and I burnish the piece, a soft cloth. And some people like to burnish with something hard, like a smooth or the back of a spoon. But I like the soft cloth because it gives me a satiny sheen, really glossy, just a nice satiny sheen. And then they come out not with a super gloss on them, but they're I don't know how to say this.
People just have to come in and see. They're what
They just
eggshell, I think is what it would look like.
Come in and
it's beautiful. You can tell that it's a natural gloss, like the difference between people who have glossy hair and people who put stuff on their hair to make it. You can tell that it's part of the clay. It's not a thing applied on top. I have a quick question. One, what is the black thing in the back? Is that something that's in it? It looks like it has ash on it. Is that something having another process done on it? I feel like I'm in the beauty shop.
Actually, that's a vessel that's made out of black clay.
Ah, oh, that's right. Yeah, you do have the dark. Yeah.
So I do have some vessels. That one made out of black clay, but it has a slip of white clay in a pattern going across it.
So this steel wool that's on here, this is going to go in. So these have not had any kind of firing yet, right?
So these have
They're going to
had
go
one
into
fire.
your regular, what we non-ceramic people call a regular kiln. Yeah.
So these two vessels have gone through what's called a bisque firing,
Okay.
the first firing. And so they have been fired to about 1700 degrees Fahrenheit. And I'm putting on things like the steel wool for the pit firing so that the surfaces can react to the steel wool.
Okay. I gotcha. Thank you. So now
So now I am ready for the actual firing. And this is my pit. And because I live in the city limits of Corvallis, it would be highly frowned upon if I were to dig big pits in my backyard. So my pit is actually half of a 55-gallon drum, and I'm firing to a pretty small scale. So next.
Okay, 55-gallon drum. Okay.
Yep, just half of a 55-gallon drum.
And you did mention, and I can see it's early spring here by the flowers, you did mention that this is not a summertime activity.
No, when fire restrictions go up, that's when I don't do this during the hot summer months.
This is building the fire.
So now my process is first in the pit, I lay down a bed of saw shavings and straw next. And then add salt and copper carbonate to actually fume the pieces to give them color.
Okay.
Next. And so the next thing I do is to nestle all the ware in the pit, and I tumble stack the pieces like baked potatoes. And you can see these are the pieces ready to go in. I have things on them like seaweed, and the large disc on the left-hand side has copper wire going across it. And then the one wrapped in paper might have moss on it, or ferns, or sometimes I use dried artichoke leaves, and I wrap them all up, and the paper holds them on to give more of a pattern on the outsides. And I used to
every
use
artist,
newspaper.
your compost pile and your garbage can become part of your studio, right? We
Oh,
all
yes.
some form of
My compost definitely makes its way into this firing.
Yeah.
And a lot of moss from the oak trees in the back comes down. So next, I tuck more straw and paper in and around, and moss, more moss in and around the pieces. Sometimes more dried seaweed if I want that salt to fume the pieces. And recently I've been experimenting with, out of my compost pile, dried coffee grounds, hence the a la French roast.
Yeah.
And I've been getting really beautiful blushes of blue and gray from just sprinkling the coffee grounds in and around the pieces.
I think that's the one I used for the little image to promote the talk today, was that had that blue cast on it. Yeah, that's just beautiful. And I would never think it was from coffee. So again, you've told us your secrets as well.
And then lastly, I build a fire similar to a campfire on top and let it do whatever it's going to do. So I start the fire, and it takes a couple of hours to start to burn down. But after, when it does start to burn down, you can see here, it's starting to burn down. And at this point, I do actually have a little bit of control, and I can go in with a pair of tongs and move some of the firewood a little bit to maybe allow the flames and the smoke to circulate in different ways. You can see the pieces, the wear starting to show through, and you can see where I can just tweak things a little bit.
So this is the part where you're talking about you're painting with smoke, right? Like it's easy to understand the wires and those things, but you're actually not controlling the smoke, but controlling the piece so that you know what the smoke is going to do.
So I can actually see the way that the flames are dancing across the pieces, mm-hmm. and I can control that slightly. Yes.
Wow. That's amazing that the smoke itself, that part I had not anticipated, and it's just blowing me away to make a bad pun there.
So next. And so then I let it finish burning down, and when it is down to hot white ash covering the pieces, that's when I put a cover on it. I put a lid on it, and I let it the pieces just steep in the fire and the smoke and the fumes from the copper carbonate, and I let it cool down overnight.
And so someone has asked if you're only firing one piece at a time, because you've got this, is a 50 some gallon. Are you just doing one piece at a time here?
No, actually, I probably had 8 pieces in this firing. So when I showed you the pieces lined up in front of the kiln, all of those went in at one time.
Okay. Oh, and that's when you say you tumble stack them. So it's not like a regular kiln where they have to sit on their little shelves. They're just all on each. Does it, if the clay is touching another piece, that doesn't do anything? If they touch each other?
But
they won't meld.
They won't what?
They won't join together or anything, because you don't get that.
No, they won't, because I don't have any glaze on these pieces. So in a high fire kiln, you have to have space between the pieces so that glaze doesn't stick to, one piece to another. Mm-hmm. But here, there's no glaze, so they don't stick together.
So you're just putting them all in there as if you were going to carry a bucket of things up the stairs or something like that. Okay. Wow. Well, and the sizes, I guess the disc was big, but your others are, what are they, like 9, 10? I should have put mine back here behind me. They're like 9, 10 inches high. So they're a size that you can kind of fit into there. And you said they do affect each other if they're touching? Do you see a little, what happens?
And they do, so you can see in the next photo. Okay, so when the kiln, excuse me. When the kiln is cool, then I take the pieces out and I carefully wash them with soap and water, and then I put a ceramic sealer on them. And that gives them kind of the glow, and it brings out the colors.
Mhm.
And so the piece that's on the left, you can see the white on the right-hand side. That's where that piece was nestled against another vessel. And so it didn't get the smoke, it didn't get the fumes. You can see the kind of pink color there. That's from the copper carbonate and the fuming onto the surface. And then there's a black line going up the middle, vertically in the middle. That's from copper wire that was wrapped on the piece. And then on the left-hand side, there are some white lines, smoky lines going up the left-hand side. Those are from seaweed. So I really like the long grass-like seaweed, and you can see how it was wrapped around the vessel. And then the vessel on the right, there is a big white splotch on the left-hand side. That's where that one was nestled against another vessel. And this one was upside down. So the black area on the top left area, that was the black where this vessel was right down into the wood shavings. And so it really took the smoke, it really got black. And then you can also see in the kind of grayish, almost blue blush that's there, that is from the coffee grounds. In fact, I'm getting from the coffee grounds. And both of these pieces are in the show. You can go to the gallery and see them.
One of them's already sold,
Oh,
but you can at least see it. I think one of those is sold. But yeah, and there's many more pieces too in the show. And again, like the glass paintings, you have to really see these in person to get a sense of the depth that you're able to create on these flat surfaces is just exquisite. The vessel on the left, the far left of the vessel on the left, those little white lines, they remind me almost of the scratches on Karrie's pieces. Doesn't it look almost like a similar vocabulary there? Those fine white lines, and it's part of what has made this show look great together. This is the last of your pieces. So other questions? I have a question about, you show us the successes. How often do you have to do things just not work? And what happens to them?
Well, every once in a while, I have learned that you don't want to use firewood that's too heavy. I've had logs fall and break pieces. I don't lose very many of them in the pit firing. It's not like horsehair firing where I lose probably 35 to 40% of
Sometimes they just don't work.
vessels.
Yeah, it's like splashing or something. This is actually a great question, and it was one of my questions the first time we met. And someone has asked, how is this different from raku? I think a lot of people are familiar with the term raku, or we did something like it in high school maybe, or at a, and we knew that had to do with putting things in a pit. So how is this different from raku?
So in raku, the ware is heated up in a kiln, and you use a fuel such as natural gas or propane. And so the pieces are heated up fast and hot and furious, just like in pit firing. But they're not in actual contact with the pit, with the fire itself. And there are a lot of similarities. So in Western raku, the pieces up in the kiln, but I have glazes, low fire glazes on them. And then when the glaze is hot enough to mature, I pull them out and put them in a can of combustibles, so then they do smoke, and that is where you see the similarities. You do smoke a lot of raku ware, not all of it, but a lot of it.
Okay, so
there are many
something to do with a
similarities.
pit, but they're fired first in the kiln and with glazes, and then I would imagine the glaze, I don't know the chemistry of it, but people can can look that up too, and I'm sure you probably know it, because there are some beautiful raku pieces. The large pieces in the show are raku. There's, I think, 3 of them in the window, and then if you've seen the alcove, that your biggest piece, I think, is in there, a large raku vessel, and those are the ones with those swirls on them that look like a galaxy. If you can look back on our Facebook page too and see those. And then above that is one of Karrie's canvas paintings that I do want to let her address that as well. And then we do have horsehair pieces, and I know that's a lot. It's a whole other process for you to go into. Maybe you'll do it at some other time for us. But the horsehair pieces in the gallery, if you're looking through the gallery shop, are the white ones. They're beautiful white vessels, similar shapes to these, with these very just very alive lines on them that we'll have to do another day, Rebecca, with you one time. You do a great job of explaining it. So we're right at noon. I'm going to go ahead and I think quit the screen sharing so we can have more people up. There we go. So now we can kind of see more people. And if you have questions you want to ask in person, or Karrie, if you want to explain your canvas pieces, I don't have images of those to show.
Yeah.
You'll have to go to the gallery shop to see.
Yeah, yeah. They're on the gallery shop on the website. If anybody has any reason to want to talk to me in person about process or look at them and have discussions, I'm very close to the gallery. They would let me know and we'd make an appointment. Mm-hmm. And I'd love to meet you in person. So
yeah, there's an appointment button actually on the website, and also when you're in the gallery shop,
yes,
there's an appointment button there too, because only being open 4 days a week and shorter hours, we're happy to. There's several of us who are very close to the gallery, so
yeah,
it's things other than Karrie's work too. It's nice to meet the artist as well, but any of us are able to come down and show you things in the gallery. There's the Denise. Can you talk a little so that image will show? There's a picture of the gallery there. The computer that's labeled Timothy is in the gallery, and so you can see some of Karrie's paintings and the horsehair. There's Denise. So that's the picture at the gallery there, so folks are able to listen to us there. But that's some of the horsehair pieces, and Denise is going to give us a little tour. You can get an idea of the scale, and maybe even see those raku pieces. It's such a pretty Sunday. I'm surprised anybody's not out on the river or something. There's that big disc. You can see the size on that disc there. And Karrie's piece. So, and we've got Karrie's pieces are also in different scales. We've got some big ones. There's the raku pieces. So we'll be open until 5 today too, if you want to go down and I don't know, have lunch nearby or something, or take a carry out. You're welcome to bring your drinks or ice cream cones or whatever in the gallery. So Karrie, is this new for you? Which came first, the painting on glass or the painting on canvas?
Well, I studied art and architecture, and so I've been painting and drawing my whole life. I really like life drawing so very much. But the painting on glass didn't start until 1985, and I've done it off and on through the years. So I guess I just don't have one medium, but you know, because I also did marble sculpture, and I was an estimator at Conrad Stone. We did slab work, and so that really started, gosh, Joe and I go back to 1972 on that deal. So the glass painting is really maybe the last thing that I delved into by accident.
Everything coming together. Is there a, someone has asked too, is there a limit, because you're using the glass, is there a size limitation on these?
I don't go over 16 by 20, but you know, I know there are glass artists who do poured glass, you know, very thick, and paint on the back or in layers. And, but, you know, and there are a few people connected through Bullseye Glass, I believe, that do that sort of work. And, but I'm not really interested in doing that. I think it's amazing, but.
Yeah, and they would get heavy. I think they're going to get really, really heavy.
Oh, yes,
too.
yes.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, you know, if you think about glass, is your glass like window glass? I mean, if you think of huge windows, right?
Yeah, if I paint on an old window, that I can get fairly big on that, because that's a different kind of glass. And I'm not a glass expert. So I just know that the wavy glass on the old window frames is just exquisite, and it takes, I mean, you can actually drop one of those and it won't break. I mean, they're amazing.
Yeah, any of us who've lived in old houses know about that glass. But how beautiful with the little bubbles.
Yes.
I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, the windows that don't have a good view, if I put Karrie up on a ladder,
Right.
use house paint, and then we'll seal it really well. It'll be awesome. You mentioned life drawing. Is that, have you tried life drawing, or people, I'm thinking of those kind of gestural drawings. Have you tried that, or you're just a landscape?
Well, you remember the shaman type?
Yes.
That is a reverse sketch.
Okay, yeah.
So, and I've done a lot of that, experimenting to see how far I can take it. It's very easy to screw it up. And then you just start over. But.
Yeah, that's true. It's a little bit like encaustic, where we can just scrape all the wax off.
Yeah, well, you know, no matter what your art is, if you overwork anything, it's not good. You know,
so that's the razor blade. I guess you never waste a piece of glass.
That's right.
Yeah, you can always go back to it. Well, thank you. I know we're just running a little bit over 12 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and log off. Looks like there's folks in the gallery, which is great. And if there's any more questions, does anybody have anything else? Do I have any more chats here? Just some thanks and things that are coming through. So take a look at the website, or stop by the gallery today. And this show will be up through next Sunday. So this is our last regular week. And then next Sunday, when we close at 5, a week from today, the show will come down. And we have another great one in store for you too, with a printmaker and another ceramic artist. So anything else from anybody?
Michelle?
Yeah.
I had a little question. Someone asked about my talisman pieces.
We're here for the gallery. So.
Yeah, and I do have more in the works. I'm presently glazing right now. I hope to have new pieces in the next week.
Great.
So.
Okay. Yeah, those are Dawn's, and you'll see those those are also in the gallery. Each of the member artists has a shop in the gallery shop online, and Dawn does bees, beetles, and you're doing butterflies as well.
I'm working on some butterflies. I don't know if they'll turn out. You never know what's going to happen, so we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, but you know, she's been doing this a while too, so she knows how to control those happy accents.
Yeah.
And yeah, she's furiously glazing on those, and hopefully some more of her winged merfolk as well. Yeah, those talismans are really cute. They're mostly worn as necklaces, but I guess you could hang them anywhere. They're nice, like that great sort of, I think, oh, Denise is going to go show us some. There's Dawn's little area. So there's one of the scarab beetles. Those are beautiful, and they're on really nice those knotted leather cords.
Actually, it's a waxed cord.
Waxed cotton cord. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, that goes with that style, you know. Yeah, they look great. And there's some of your dolls. And there's the last, or yeah, there's one of those merfolk was bought last night, and so we only have one left, and those are cool too. Anything else from anybody? Well, thanks. Thank you, Karrie and
Thank
Rebecca.
you.
Both of you.
Thank you.
Denise is giving us a great tour of the gallery. Thank you. Yeah, thanks so much for doing that. And I know, you know, many of us who are watching are artists, and we tend to be introverts, and it's not always easy. But, you know, once you start talking about your stuff, then it's sometimes hard to get you to shut up about it. So, but yeah, thank you very much, everybody who came by. And join us on the next first Friday, which will be September, I'm logging in, what is that? I don't want to give the wrong day, but it is the next first Friday, which will be September 4th, Friday, September 4th. That's the Friday of Labor Day weekend, but we'll be doing another first Friday then. And come on in between now and next Sunday and see Rebecca and Karrie's things. Thank you, everybody, for stopping by.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. And we'll go ahead. We're going to post this on the website too. We've recorded and we'll post it on the website.
And Michelle and Denise, can you see me after the Zoom in Zoom? Because we need to rename the computer in there.
Oh,
So.
yeah. Yeah.
It has to be done during Zoom.
It's Timothy, but yeah, we can stay on and have a gallery meeting if you want, but I'll quit the recording.
Just a short one.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, I'll put the recording
Great
on those of us who are in the gallery. Hang on. Everybody else, bye. Have a great Sunday. Get out there and enjoy the sunshine and the cool weather. Okay, we're going to quit recording. Stop the recording.
Hi, Ted.